Hi, this is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And we have a special edition for you here on the Mouthwash Show. I'm going to call this A Beautiful Mind. I had a one on one interview with Cassie, and I think you'll be surprised at how calm and collected she is. So let's get to that interview and let's see what you think. Hey, welcome, Mouthwash viewers. I have a special edition for you here. I have Cassie Jackson on with me here, and we're going to have a one on one conversation. And I think we're going to get to know Cassie Jackson, and we're going to try to understand where she's coming from. So I think you're going to find this a very interesting interview, and I hope you enjoy it. So, hey, Cassie, how are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me back on. I really appreciate it, John.
Yeah, I love your enthusiasm, and one of the things I think some people don't really love your enthusiasm as much as say maybe I do. So we're going to talk about a few things today. Let's start off with mental health. Let's talk about it. I suffer from ADHD, and I know sometimes it can creep up on you and really get you wigged out. So uh, let's tell our viewers a little bit about what you struggle with and maybe what you have a hard time with, and maybe they'll understand more from your point of view on things.
Sure, perfect. So, ADHD. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So it's from childhood. A lot of people say, in adults, like, oh, I have it. I have adults. Adults don't really get ADHD. I mean, generally, it's been missed in childhood, and then the symptoms are being picked up because they weren't diagnosed. For me, it was pretty severe my whole life, mainly with hyperactivity and attention and focus. But I was a swimmer as a child, so it very much got masked because I did so much that the hyperactivity piece was masked. And then some people with ADHD can get hyper focused. So on things that they like to do, it's fine. Things that they don't like to do, right? It's a mess all over the place. And that's where you see with kids, usually it manifests kids that don't like school or can't sit still. And you see that. For me, I liked school, so I hyper focused on that. So again, it was masked throughout that. I wasn't a bad student. I was swimming. And then in college, when I kind of slowed down and stopped that, is when it really became apparent. And then, so
Now let me interrupt here. Where did you go to college?
I went to Columbia University in New York City.
Out there in New York City, man, being hyperactive out in New York City, man.
Oh my gosh.
So they call that the city that never sleeps or whatever. But man, if you try to get across town, it takes forever. I
Oh
mean,
man, I had a really great time in New York, certainly, but did need to get diagnosed because a lot of times with ADHD, which is neurodivergence on the spectrum of like autism, um, you know, because of the behavior of interrupting, talking too much, being loud, being hyperactive, not sitting in your seat, doing things that socially, right, get you negative attention, that can in and of itself lead and create anxiety disorders or create depressive states, right? Because of how people are treating you. And so it's a chicken or an egg kind of situation a lot of the times with an ADHD. I'll just use myself, for me to tangle that out with patients. Or is it, if the ADHD could be treated with that depression and anxiety lift, right? Because it's based on that. Or is it a separate thing where you'll still have mood disorders even when the ADHD is steady? And so that also is what I have. So my ADHD can be managed at certain times of the day, and that medication will wear off. But I do have anxiety and depressive states, right? So those can fluctuate. And I'm on medication for that as well, but those are ones that, depending on situational factors, can get better or worse.
Yeah, and I think that my father-in-law is a great man. He was president of Shear Industrial here in Indianapolis, and he did only had a high school diploma, and he always would apologize for not having college education. But he was a very wise man. And, he told me one time I was saying something about somebody, and he says, "You know what? That's just how they are." And it's like, in other words, accept people who for what they are.
Yeah.
And sometimes reading between the lines and actually seeing someone's from their point of view. And I think, like I said, you're very passionate at what you do, and you're very creative at what you do. Some people don't like that creativity. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with some of the things you did to get the attention on the subject matter at hand.
Yeah. So we were talking, I think earlier, just in terms of like what, if you're doing stuff like this, you want an audience, what is going to bring people on. And then we were saying that, nowadays people are just wanting to be right, right? Or they don't, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Well, this is the thing. If it's people are more concerned with being right than doing what's right.
Than doing what's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that, I took that and just inflated my ego, right? So it became creative with this idea of I am right and you are wrong. And because, and I'm going to use Moms for Liberty as an example, because the far right has a hate group, right? And the rhetoric and the language that they're using online, what they're calling people and children and teachers online, to me is not even half of what I'm doing right now. But so basically I'm doing, and a lot of that's misinformation. And so I'm countering that on the other end. Whereas particularly in places like Carmel, where I grew up, people would never act like this. And we really care what people think. And we really don't want things to be spread. And I'm kind of like,
Indiana, right?
yeah, I'm like throwing that away, that idea of, well, no, we can actually say it out loud and we should be, and then the creativity stuff is just like my brain. I don't even know where.
Well, I think I saw some cheerleader outfits and
Yeah,
things, and it's like, which it's entertaining, and we say
yeah.
that.
I
So,
mean,
do you think that maybe some of them, you're so creative? Do you think that some of the message possibly gets lost?
absolutely. The message absolutely gets lost. And it also gets lost again. And I have to use this because truly, this is part of why I am so extreme. Moms for Liberty message gets lost by the way that they are doing things to us, right? To, not to their base who will respond to key scary words, right? But to us, it is absolutely egregious.
How do you balance, uh,
Oh,
the creativity between the message and losing the message?
sure. And so initially when the elections were going on, my idea was to get attention. And cursing, it does get attention, particularly from like a blonde, like like housewife and who's 40. And then, it's
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah.
what is going on? And so that was part of it, but also the demographic I was going to. And I'm not saying this is right, but the demographic was a younger demographic to try to get out the vote, right? And so they're going to respond to that kind of, because the monster
Activism. I mean, they are this
right,
generation coming up is activism. They're
these
activists.
right, these moms and like this. I got kicked out of equity groups. Okay, our equity groups I got kicked out of because they don't really know what equity is. But I'm telling you, they're like so worried about this, and like they've constantly tried to silence me, constantly giving me negative feedback. There's only certain people that can give me feedback that have figured out how to do it without me being like. But anyway, they what was I saying? Oh, that's not who I was going after, right? I know that they're going to find me very immature and horribly like, oh my gosh, she's cursing. It's like, this is not. And like, that's cool. But the younger crowd who I wanted to come out to vote who didn't, right? They're going to respond to some of that. And again, that's not cool because I wish that wasn't the way it was. But
one of the things that I find interesting from an outside observation is, do you feel like, you have no inhibition about saying whatever, however, to whoever? Do you think there's some people that may not like you just because you're free? That you're able to express yourself, and maybe they're a little jealous.
part of that is why I did the F around, find out, and say it out loud campaigns, because I'm willing to say it. And so I have asked people to feed into me what is going on in the community, what's being said, and then I will say it out loud. Yeah. So some people are like really excited and grateful and happy and like cheering me on. And then I think there are some certainly that, and there I've gotten a lot of pushback by like some men. So for example, I've been called a lot of names, but I've also had men be like, if we were in Korea right now, like you couldn't talk like that. Or if we were, pointing out like my freedom and like how lucky I am that I could even be.
The Taliban didn't come after you. You're right.
I know.
So,
No, I mean, so I'm just like, oh, would you like me to be in Korea? So I agree. I don't want to necessarily say like jealousy. I think it's just startling to people. I mean, I'm sure there's some women that are jealous, but I think overall I've gotten positive feedback of
about how many people are in what I would call probably your advisory circle. Who are the people that feed into you? You just mentioned that. How many would that be? I don't want you to say who because
yeah, no,
but I'm just saying how many how many people would be that in that circle?
There's about 25 that are in a core group of a message, which I would say is the message group where, and those are advocates from all around us. So from Westfield and Fishers and Noblesville and Carmel, so that if I start to do stuff, these are advocates in that group, because, that will hear back from their people, and then they can come to me and it's a safe space for them to be like, listen, and I'll either be like, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to proceed, or we can like talk it out. And I mean, most of the time I do proceed, but it's that in that way.
So yeah, and I think really, the Hamilton East County Library has become the punching bag for this issue that's going on in a lot of different communities, and it's like this one's been a pretty hot topic, and that's how I got involved with covering it, because I'm like, hey, I live in Mars Hill down by the airport, and people would say, well, this isn't your neighborhood, and this isn't. Well, I do work up there. I mean, I've done several masonry jobs. The whole last summer, I did 3 masonry jobs up in Hamilton County. But am I going to go to the library? I can't remember the last time I went to the library. Maybe for that meeting. I mean, I'm just not a book guy. I'm not, but I appreciate people that are. But this issue has become sort of ground zero for a lot of things. And honestly, I think we are the library board issue is pretty much in our rearview mirror somewhat, because pretty much players on both sides have changed teams, so to speak.
Well, I do want to just say, I don't know when this is going to be aired, but if they're about to appoint, I think Hamilton County Council is about to appoint someone. Do not appoint Melba. If you're going to keep that in, don't appoint Melba. You probably
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep that part out there, because, like I said, I think I'm going to name this Beautiful Mind.
That's so sweet. I was so touched when you wrote that back. And it was so funny because you got privy to my talk text, which is bad news. The Find Out will tell you when I start talk texting. And so that night after you got this light is like, I mean, it might have been one of my top 3 longest. And I didn't even go back to proofread yours. So it was all over the place.
Yeah, well, and that's like I say, like my father used to say, that's just how they are. You got to be able to see through the outside layers to get to the person. And honestly, the first time I met you, and I know we talked about this, as well, just go ahead and tell our viewers the first time you met me what you thought.
Yeah, so the first time I met John was in an accommodating situation. So no, it's like I'm like getting goosebumps because you're bringing me back on after that situation so that I can't have a voice, and accommodating the time of day, which is the morning. But John and I met at the Radical Leftist Mob Boss meeting, and I think that was where Ray had to read the passage and all of that. But when I walked in, it was packed, and I always get there a little late, and it must have been annoying because I'm like squeezing into people, and like John totally made way for me, and then another woman was behind him who was much shorter, and so he even had her go in front and made jokes with us about how we'll have to switch halfway through, and it was just, he was lovely, and yeah, thanks, John.
Full disclosure, I had no idea who you were. I mean, I think you were crawling on the floor, and I'm like, okay, I see this, and then I learned.
Yeah,
I learned what was going on there, and but that type of atmosphere was, I mean, it was charged. I mean, like you said, it was packed, and we were back there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Those for, those against, and those neutral were in there, and in the trenches. And we listened to testimony, and when you're on one side, you dig your heels in, and then you maybe embellish things, and it happens on both sides, obviously, and that's where we get the giant divide.
Yeah, but my point, I want it to be very specific. That is false information. So we can talk about the divide and how radical it is. I'm there with you, and I am not saying the left does not F around with that. I am not saying that. I am not absolving us or any of our. I think it's not hard to be open to people on the other side, right? Because if you understand what they're hearing that, there's pornography in schools, that teachers are indoctrinating students. They're hearing things that are really scary, and this is their children. So if I truly believe those things to be true, Like I would be upset, right? Like if I and same with my side, right? Like I think they can appreciate when I'm saying I know if these, laws are passed or if these people are put into positions where they can pass certain laws, like there will be deaths, like there will be children who are not white, who are brown and black, that are marginalized, and they will suffer, right? And with just like with abortion, we're asking women to keep clusters of cells and looking at live women and saying, no, no, we value life, and here's a life in front of you. I'm getting a little off track. I think where I was going with that was that with children, I think they can understand that if I really believe that these kids are going to be hurt and harmed by these laws, they can understand how upset I would be. We can both understand like that level, right?
Yeah, it's like the mama bear and her cubs. I mean, it really is. It's
And my
that,
kids
and I
would
would
watch.
say that you would be a perfect example of don't mess with my kids, and
Yeah.
and you can see that with the other side.
I can appreciate how upset people on the right would be in hearing the things that they're hearing, because I would too. I would be horrified if I thought that my kids would walk in and see those penises like that were on that book. Horrified. But what I'm also saying is that it is not real information. And so it's just not. And we've proven that. And the way that they're trying to say it's not proven is by saying you can't trust experts.
To
Yeah.
me, my biggest point is having people understand this, and maybe we don't get into these crowded rooms yelling at each other. I
Right. Because
mean,
I
it
will.
was fun. It was fun once, but I don't want to do it
Right, because
anymore.
I can sit down at both as just a person and as a professional. I can have that boundary. I can treat people with respect. Right? I can do all that. What I really need them to hear though is like, can you hear me say that I appreciate how upset that would make you? It would make me too. But your information is not accurate, and it's not accurate to the extent that it's really going to harm a lot of people. It has nothing to do with how we were as a country with the Statue of Liberty and having all kinds and being so proud of having all kinds of people that needed to come here for freedom, all kinds. And now look at us.
Well, I hope that this will give our viewers some more understanding about Cassie and how she thinks. And you can see from this interview, hey, have a one-on-one conversation with Cassie, and you'll see things a little bit differently than that. And then appreciate her energy and her creativity. And then we'll go from there. So, Kathy, I'll let you have the final word here.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you, like I said, for accommodating, letting me come on, have a voice. I thought this was great what we talked about. I am happy to tone down my rhetoric. If people can stop giving really false information on your side, I'm happy to try to reach across whatever we can do. But yeah, I hope you got a better sense of just the angle that I'm going with, and the flex is what I call it.
Well, Cassie, I've enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for doing it. Hey, loyal Mouthwash viewers, thanks for tuning into this special edition. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. live for our show. See you then.